Hey everybody, welcome to a new segment which I am calling Mr. Moonlight's Brutally Honest Movie Breakdowns. I think that's what it's called at the moment. And I am opening up a can of worms today. I'm probably going to get angry comments. I'm going to get unfriended, longtime friendships, business associations will disavow me. But I can't do it. I can't keep pretending that Alien 3 is a good movie or a good sequel. Now, I will also add that it's okay to like this movie. I'm not saying that if you like this movie, you're wrong or you're stupid or anything like that. I have friends that worked on this movie. I think that there is an incredible amount of talent. As a matter of fact, one of the fascinating things about this movie, and I think can be learned from, is just about everybody did a good job on this movie, and it still didn't work. To me, that's a fascinating thing to talk about. And if you're a filmmaker, I think that's especially important to look at and to understand. And if you're a fan of the films and you just like watching reviews or breakdowns and that sort of thing, listen, you don't have to listen to me. And honestly, this is mainly for filmmaking educational purposes. This isn't, bashing or fandom. A matter of fact, I'm one of the people who thinks it's time to let this franchise go. I am a huge fan of the first Alien movie, of the second Aliens movie by James Cameron. And I'm actually going to talk about those in this video, and then I'll elaborate in other videos. This is a multiple part video. I think they're great movies, and to me, they're the only two canon movies. And that's my own personal decision in my little old head. This is me. I'll acknowledge the first two movies. Everything else after that is people playing in a playground, pretending that they're making Alien sequels. So with that said, all right. So the thing is that I think first we have to look at some of what came before, because I am going to subjectively, not objectively. Objectively is like, this is just my opinion, but subjectively talk about the movie as much as possible. I'll have my objective opinions in there, here and there, maybe a little more than I'm thinking I'm going to, but let's talk about the first two movies, because I think in order to understand the main reason why Alien 3 doesn't work is that it's a sequel. And if we're going to do a sequel, we have to service what came before. And I think that's the first place that Alien 3 fails, is there was a decision somewhere in there. And by the way, I'm not going to talk about what went on behind the scenes and, why things went wrong, because if you're a normal person watching these movies, you don't care, you don't know, and it doesn't give any context to the story. The only context you need is within the stories. So Alien 3 didn't service what came before. And some people will say, well, Aliens went off the rails right away, and that's not cosmic horror, and that's not okay. Like, let's talk about that, because let's see, let's switch over to an Alien image. Let's get to the original. Let's see here for a second. I downloaded a bunch of images just so we could do this. So okay, this is the first one I've seen. Now I'm clicking on it. Okay, so first we need to talk about Alien. And Alien is a movie that Dan O'Bannon said, it's kind of like a Lovecraftian in the mountains, at the Mountains of Madness type story, where you get these people who come across something ancient and alien, in the most alien sense of the word, and they go to explore it, and it just, it's incomprehensible horror that blows their mind. H.P. Lovecraft was notorious for this kind of nihilistic take on what's out there in the universe and man's insignificance. And I think that's a great place to start a horror movie. Ridley Scott wanted to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space. He was very enamored with that film. And he brought that to the game. And then H.R. Giger brought his nightmare biomechanoid design sense. And then you had like Ron Cobb bringing in his, used future, truckers in space aesthetic. And it all came together beautifully. Because of that, a lot of fans of the franchise have said, well, this is Lovecraftian, nihilistic, cosmic horror. That is one of the ingredients, but I disagree with that, and I'm going to tell you again subjectively why. Alien isn't so much Lovecraftian. Oh, sorry, my phone is going off. People are messaging me, but I'm in the middle of doing this video, so anyway. All right, we're just gonna have to tolerate it beeping at the moment. If you hear it, sorry about that. Alien is man versus nature. I know that's a weird statement, and that's a way of putting it that very seldom gets used. And I believe that H.P. Lovecraft, whether he realized it or not, was man versus nature. That was the main core of what his stories were, but he didn't realize that, or maybe he did. I don't know, but everything really boils down to man versus nature when you talk about coming up against the unknown. Now, nature is the thing that, as cave people, we as a civilization had to contend with. We had our little encampments. Civilization was built to keep nature out because nature is scary and dangerous. So we as human beings, in our wisdom, decided, hey, if we start building up some kind of like sanctuary areas and kind of like push nature back, we can have little alcoves where we can be safe. But we're not 100% safe. We still need to push out there and hunt, explore our surroundings, understand more about the universe that we live in, and that's what became science, and that's what became industry, and that is what the Nostromo is, and these truckers in space. They've become complacent in the industry, and they are forced to step outside into, now I know nature, we think of nature as like forests and I don't know, the wilderness, animals, that sort of thing. But what we have here is we have the nature of outer space, and they are forced to step outside of their sanctuary back into nature. And just like the early days of the cave people and the hunting and that sort of thing, nature pushed back. It was a struggle, and sometimes you get eaten, stomped by a woolly mammoth, whatever. But most of those hunters would return. You come back, Grog didn't make it, but here's the story of the hunt. And you come back and tell the story, and that's why we have stories. It's because they come back and tell the story of the hunt, and they would embellish and exaggerate. And those stories would prepare future generations for what was out there. So every time you would they'd go out to hunt, they had better equipment, they were more prepared. So something that might seem terrifying on the first outing, later on, they go out and they adjust, they adapt. And that is man versus nature in a nutshell. That's what Alien is. Alien is the first hunt, so to speak. I mean, they're not actually hunting, but they're going out and exploring. It's the first time. Imagine being a cave person and encountering a woolly mammoth for the first time, and it just like runs you over. Well, whoever comes back from that says, hey, man, there are these woolly mammoths out there, and they are bad. They are giant, and they will kill you, and you don't understand. And, and people go, oh, it's like, all right. But do they stay in their camp? No, they go back out and they're more prepared. You get the point. So Alien is the first outing. Alien, they bring this alien back on board. It is incomprehensible horror to them. They get stomped by it really bad, and only one person makes it back and tells the story, and nobody believes her. Now, in H.P. Lovecraft's stories, his take is the nihilistic take. Don't bother going out there. You're going to get stopped. And he stops right there. And that's as far as his stories ever go. Essentially, his message is don't bother trying. They'll just kill you. They're too big for you. And I think as a storyteller, as a horror theme, it's fun. But you can't stop at H.P. Lovecraft. And that's what brings me to Aliens. Let's go over to Aliens. Let's find a nice Aliens image. Now, I'm just going to gloss over these, but I'm going to do other parts where I address issues. People talk about Aliens having logic leaps and plot holes. I don't actually see any plot holes. There was every once in a while I thought I did, and then I realized, oh, okay, no, it makes sense if you think about it in these terms. A lot of these are story quibbles, and a lot of these are quibbles from people who want to stick with the cosmic horror aspect of things. Now, I'm going to argue that the cosmic horror aspect of things is still alive and well in James Cameron's Aliens. I'm also going to, before I forget, I have to make a comment. I was talking to a friend of mine about this yesterday, and he said something that really resonated with me, which was, man, James Cameron just dropped that bomb that is Aliens, and its influence can be traced in so many different directions. You can find all sorts of things and trace back to Aliens. Now, there are concepts in Aliens that are not new if you've read science fiction or are into anime and that sort of thing. But he brought in the idea of the mech suit, that power loader. How many times have we seen that in other movies? Even David Fincher, who directed Alien 3 and Love, Death, Robots, had the cattle ranchers using mech suits to defend their cows. And I'm like, man, that's can be traced right back to James Cameron. And we're going to talk about that too, because we're going to talk about Alien 3 a lot. Like I said, this is a general overview. This is part 1. I'm going to address certain things in Alien 3. So anyway, going back to Aliens. Aliens, to me, is the logical progression in the scenario. In the man versus nature scenario, in the what would people do if this threat was actually happening scenario, and also thematically. Now, this is another thing that people don't consider when watching a movie. They go, oh, like he's going to be the love interest, or the aliens just become cannon fodder, or the soldiers are just disposable. I'm gonna address all of that, because a lot of that is just hyperbole. And James Cameron actually did a really good job of making sure that everything thematically and character arcs. Everybody has an arc in Aliens. Even the soldiers that people go, oh, they're just dumb, cannon fodder soldiers. There are arcs between all the characters. Some of them are smaller arcs. Some of the characters, before the Hive incident. Oh, by the way, did I say spoilers? I'm assuming you're going to know that spoilers are going to be talked about examining these movies. But Aliens is the logical progression. If somebody comes back and says, hey, there's this thing, and people go like, that really sounds highly unlikely. And you have a system that is like, essentially, she's come back to the campfire where most of the people that she has to explain herself to have never had to go out and hunt. And maybe they're used to people coming back and embellishing stuff. And, so there's a certain level of comfort and arrogance in the society that she comes back to. And she's trying to explain herself. And everywhere she looks, she sees this arrogance, and people say like, oh, there's plot holes and like how the corporation would manage her, and there's, you know, they're very kind of like, whatever, you know, you're crazy, but we're not going to hold it against you, we're just taking away your license. And then the Marines, they go like, why would the Marines just drop down to the planet and not leave anybody else up to the on the ship? Why do they behave this way? They don't behave like real military. Well, it's a movie, it's the future. We don't know how the military, or what the, you know, colonial Marine Corps, what kind of people run it. These soldiers are floating around in space, not really having to report back to anybody but their immediate command officer on the ship. And, you know, so they might get really kind of lazy and nonchalant, and they may also be so arrogant that they're like, we don't need to leave anybody up on the ship. I'm not saying that all of these things can be excused, but thematically it works, and Aliens is very thematically attuned to what the progression from Alien would be. So it works, and Ripley's story is added to. She's been in space for 57 years. She lost her daughter, and so it becomes a redemption story for her. Every soldier has a redemption story arc in Aliens. This movie is about redeeming the mistake that was made on the first hunt and coming back and trying again, man versus nature. And by the way, and people go, well, woman versus nature. Look, the term mankind, the word man is in woman as well. Mankind, man and woman. Mankind. It's nomenclature. Trust me on this. So anyway, it becomes a redemption story, and Ripley's redemption story is motherhood. And of course, the Queen is a mother as well, so it's mother versus mother. So I'm going to elaborate on all of that more in other parts, but let's move on to Alien 3. And I don't know how long this video is. Let's see, let's look at the thing here. How long have we been recording for? Where does it say? About 17 minutes. Okay, so I'll try and wrap this up within 21 minutes. So let's go on to Alien 3. Alien 3 does not service the story, and it's a shame, because Alien 3 could have been great. And I'm also going to talk about, hey, listen, everybody knows what they would have done for Alien 3, and everyone knows what they would have done for Alien 5. And it's different from person to person that you ask. No one asked me, but I'm going to tell you in one of these parts. I'm going to tell you about how I would have fixed Alien 3 if I had been, brought into that production maybe midway and said, how do we fix this? And I'll also talk about what I would have done for Alien 3 had it been just given to me as like, create whatever you want thematically. And I might even talk about how I would have made a sequel to Alien Resurrection that might have helped make things a little better. Alien Resurrection is, and again, Alien Resurrection is a movie that I think would have been a lot of fun if they had made it as not an Aliens movie, and they did. It's called Deep Rising. Check it out. It's the exact same movie as Alien Resurrection, except it's not an Aliens movie, so it becomes more fun because you're not bogged down in the WTF. Anyway, so where was I? So Alien 3 does not thematically fit unless you just want to be a downer. And I'm okay, full disclosure here. I think David Fincher is an amazing filmmaker. I think he's very talented. I think he knows what he's doing, probably more than most filmmakers out there. But I have yet to find a single David Fincher movie that I enjoy, because and this comes down to values. I've always found David Fincher to be very nihilistic. I would say nothing wrong with that, but I just don't agree with nihilism. To me, nihilism is like a substitute for being clever. It's kind of, in a way, it's saying like, somebody says, hey, I built this beautiful sandcastle, and nihilism is like steps on your sandcastle, and when you're mad about it, they go, well, your sandcastle was eventually going to crumble anyway, so you're stupid for being mad at me kicking over your sandcastle. And look, it's not a slight against David Fincher. I know a lot of people who are nihilists. It's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. I'm sure that I would have a lot of fun having beers with David Fincher at some point. So David Fincher, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to slight you. I just have a difference of opinion on this. But I think nihilism is like that in movies. It's a dead end, just like with H.P. Lovecraft stories. You can only tell the same story so many times with the, we encountered this horror, and now I have to write it down before it eats me. Don't go out into the wilderness. You'll get eaten too. Or don't you think like it's going to come in and eat you? So, whatever you think, you're doomed. You might as well, pack it in now, like whatever. It's not why you come to the campfire for the story of the hunt. You don't want that. And to say that, hey, well, it doesn't matter if the audience doesn't want that. It's, we're going to give it to it because this is the way it is. Well, no, it's not. It's just one take on the way it is. But for me, Alien 3 is kind of, like I said, it's kicking over this beautifully built sandcastle and maybe giving you like a pile of sand in return and then trying to tell you that it's better. I think Alien 3 is kind of that pile of sand, and I just can't keep pretending it's better. And again, sorry to everybody who worked on this movie. Everybody did a beautiful job. I mean, look at this shot. It is fantastic. Sigourney Weaver's performance, as always, and by the way, I've heard she's like one of the nicest people in Hollywood. I've never heard a bad word uttered about Sigourney Weaver. Everybody I know that's worked with her has said like she's absolutely wonderful. And then that alien, again, full disclosure, if my friends at Studio ADI are listening, I worked for Studio ADI. They're my favorite effects company. I've been a huge fan since I was a teenager, and I'll talk about that too, my experience as a teenager watching this film. But it's like one of my favorite alien designs. It just looks gorgeous. The camera work is fantastic. The actors are great. I think the score is a fantastic score. But again, this is interesting. Everybody did a great job. Most of it was wrong for Aliens. It was just tonally too different. And people go, well, James Cameron was, he had his own style for yes, but it matched. It made sense in the world of Alien. Ridley Scott had this beautiful anamorphic style for the original Alien. James Cameron didn't use anamorphic, but the world fit. It felt like, okay, if I were to step out onto a planet, it would look like this. And the way people behave matches. There's no theme in Alien 3 except, your sandcastle's going to get stepped on. Don't bother trying to redeem yourself because you're irredeemable. Don't try, the story arc. Alien was not Ripley's story. Alien was the story of the crew of the Nostromo. It became Ripley's story when she became the survivor. And the second Aliens is about being a survivor and learning to, as Burke says, get back on the horse, go back out on the hunt, take what you've learned, and conquer and redeem something. You lost your daughter, but there are people that you can save. You can make a difference. You can conquer nature to some degree, or learn to live and survive in nature and come back from the hunt. Alien 3 is the don't bother, you know. You liked Newt, you're stupid for liking Newt. You liked Hicks, you liked the idea of them becoming a family, you're stupid for liking that. Now, okay, that might be a little harsh. That might not be what they were getting at. But essentially, that's what, when the audience sat down to see Alien 3, they wanted to... The fact is that Alien was the Nostromo, the story of the crew of the Nostromo. Aliens was the story of Ripley as a survivor. Alien 3 should have been the story of Newt, Hicks, and Ripley, and maybe Bishop as well. Now they're the survivors. Now they have... now it becomes their story. That's what a third installment needed to be to thematically complete the arc. It would have been more of a family story. It may have been years later, and Newt's an adult, and maybe she has a family. But we'll get into that next time. I think that, you know, most of all, I think I would just want to wrap it up by making the point of the general idea of why it didn't work. David Fincher was not the right director for this movie. I don't know who would have been aside from James Cameron. Maybe Ridley Scott, although the prequels, that's another can of worms right there. When you look at David Fincher's work, he just come out of doing a bunch of music videos. The movie looks like a music video. It's got sweeping tracking shots, these, you know, really dramatic angles, these completely tonally different lighting, and acting style is completely tonally different. And we're gonna get into the script, the story, because ultimately, like I said, it was just it was an ill-conceived script, and there are a lot of things about it I hear people talk about are really great. I don't agree. One of the things is, like I said, killing off Newt and Hicks. We showed up for their story. And if you're going to kill them off, or you're going to get rid of them in some way, give us something to root for, because there's nothing to root for in this movie. Do we want to root for these prisoners? No, we don't even know anything about them. You know, there's some exposition, there's some backstory, kind of some mopey silent moments, them arguing. None of that is character development. None of that is a story arc. And I'm afraid to say it, but a lot of it bored me. A lot of it was boring. So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about how the assembly cut actually succeeds in being more boring. I don't understand why people rave about the assembly cut being better. There's some kind of neat things in there. Anyway, I'm going to talk about all that. I'm going to talk about what I loved. I love the effects. I love the sets. I do think that the actors are worth acknowledging. Most of them. There's one actor who's I'm sorry. Again, it was not that he did a bad job, but it was just it was wrong for the movie. So I probably have made people angry enough. Sorry about that. Don't hate me. I'm not trying to slight people who like this movie. I'm not trying to slight anybody who worked on this movie. I just want to talk about why it didn't work. And the franchise has been in shambles ever since. That's not 100% David Fincher's fault, but it was kind of the stone that everyone tripped over. And from then on, nobody else knew what to do. So anyway, leave comments. Be nice. I'm doing this in a nice way. I'm not trying to slight anybody. I don't really feel like being attacked. I want to talk about this movie in a way that'll help other filmmakers, and maybe address some issues that, if they do another sequel or something, they might want to think about. So let me know what issues you have with Alien 3, if you're in agreement with me, if you've got points to make or things you'd like to hear me talk about. I think next time I'm going to talk about the relationship between Clemens and Ripley. I think everybody it's too easy to start off with the death of Newton Hicks. I'll get to that too. But yeah, Clemens and Ripley, that's the number one thing that I have a big problem with. So we'll get to that in the next video. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, I do have a Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description. I also have a PayPal if you just want to leave a tip. I always appreciate that. I will have also more interviews coming up soon, both in practical effects on the Practical People and my household filmmaking interview shows. I'm hoping to have Clint Carney on, writer and star of Dry Blood, which came out through Dread Central. And yeah, I'll do more work on the Live Forever Ray Bradbury Live Forever play. I'm going to put more behind the scenes on that up soon. And also something else. Oh yeah, I've been working on The Quantum Terror, which is my first feature film coming out, and I might do some more BTS on that. So lots coming up. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to subscribe, hit that bell, and I'll be back soon with more on why I think Alien 3 does not work.